So we're covering the undergraduate scholarship application today. So I'll go over a little bit about just our scholarships in general, the ones that my office administers through the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office. I'll go over what it looks like for scholarships for this current year, what it will look like for scholarships for next year, because yes, we are already looking to apply for scholarships for next year, as crazy as that sounds. And then I'm happy to answer any just general financial aid questions, outside scholarships questions, prestigious scholarship questions. So questions, I love them. They help break up the presentation. So definitely feel free to unmute, chat in, or at the end of the presentation, we can answer any questions that you have. So I will go ahead and jump in. Kind of already said this, but we will going over just some facts and statistics about our scholarships, especially specific to the College of Ag, since that's what all of you guys are in. Going over this year's scholarships, next year's scholarships, and then kind of going into detail about how we actually choose our recipients and how you can get selected for one of our scholarships. So as a general overview, our office awards over $6.5 million in our scholarships, all available through the application that I'll be going over. So we have a ton of money that we're trying to get into the hands of our students. We administer 500 scholarships through that money. So those are donor-based scholarships. Donors have given money, and there's over 500 of them that we are working through. All of them have different criteria. We'll go into those different criteria in a second. But there's nothing you need to do in order to be considered for all of them other than just this one application. So one application, over 500 scholarships that you're going to be considered for. So it's a great opportunity. It's not, you're normally having to like sift through scholarships, find one, apply to one. This is the best way to get kind of your name out there for so many awards. Our scholarships do range from $100 to $15,000, and you can receive multiple. So that's the range, but they can be stacked on top of each other. So that is kind of what it looks like in the general overview of scholarships. I do want to jump into specifically College of Ag stats though, because you guys are impressive how much funding there is available. So I want to shout that out. If there's any kind of incentive to apply for scholarships, it's what I'm about to go over, because even as we were pulling the data, looking into this, I was a little bit shocked. So this is kind of a pie chart of all of our scholarships that we award. So all $6.5 million. You can see that over half of them are not college specific. So those are kind of going into the criteria where donors might say, we want to award to students who have a certain career interest, or that they are from a certain part of the country or of California. So more generalized, but you all have a quarter of the scholarships just specifically for College of Ag students. So there's a lot of donor funding specifically in this college. $1.6 million of our 6.5 total is specifically just for this college. So no other students on campus, if they're not in this college, can even touch that money. So this is massive. As you can see, the other colleges, combined don't even reach how much you guys have available. So this is the college to be in if you want to get scholarships. And that means that you guys absolutely should apply, because you have 3/4 of the scholarships that we award, you are eligible to be considered for. So that is massive. And we also have a lot of restricted codes that are available to you. And we'll go over that in a second if you don't know what restricted codes are, but basically a lot of donors want to give funding to you, and we are looking for you guys. So restricted codes help you, help us find you. So we'll go into that in a second, but lots of opportunities specifically for this college, which is great news. I know we talked that we had some freshmen, so I'm going to go over what scholarships look like for this first year on campus, specifically for freshman students, because it's different from the rest of the time that you're here on campus. So if you are a new student, this is your first fall quarter, there was nothing you actually needed to do in order to be considered for scholarships for your first year. Your admissions application served as your scholarship application. So it's kind of bundled in with that whole process. Didn't need to do anything else that's special. And if you didn't receive a scholarship yet, or you've received one and you're hoping to receive more, there is still a chance of that. And same goes for continuing students. We award scholarships year round. So we don't let funding just sit there, we spend it. So if there's funding available, we will be looking to find students who we can award it to. So we do our bulk of the awarding for freshmen at the time of admissions, for continuing students over the summer. However, if we have funding available, we get it out even up till the end of the year. So it could be, May, and we're awarding scholarships. So it's never too late to get a scholarship. Definitely want to know that, but we will notify you via email. So it's important you're checking your email. You'll also see, of course, the award posted to your My Awards, but just keep an eye out. Heads up, you could see something potentially later on. That is for the current year that we're in. We are already looking for scholarships for next year, and for continuing students, you might be familiar with this process, or you will get to be familiar with this process because it's the same every year. Our scholarship application opens up in October 1st every single year, and it will close sometime in early January. The date kind of changes. It's somewhere within the second week of January typically. And we will be holding advising sessions similar to this all throughout the fall quarter. So if you kind of like, this is your first time hearing about this, it's a lot of new information that we're going over, and you want to get more questions answered or just kind of learn more, definitely meet with us in one of our sit down with scholarship sessions. We'll have the link to that at the end of our presentation, but we are here to help throughout the entire quarter. So if this is intimidating or it's your first time filling out the application, you're kind of lost, we are here to help. So please reach out to us. And I think I covered all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the actual parts of the application. So there are 4 sections of the undergraduate scholarship application. The first part is letters of recommendation. You can request 2 letters of recommendation. We only need 1 though. So if one fills it out and the other one doesn't, that's totally fine because we got 1. If both fill it out, great. We will still only be reading your primary though. So you get your first choice and your second choice. We'd love if your first choice fills it out. That would be great. We'll read that. We only read the second. It's kind of the backup option if your first recommender doesn't submit the application. So it's like an insurance policy. And we'll go into a little bit more about who to choose and how to reach out to them in a second. The next part of our application are 3 personal essays. They're pretty short. They only range from 600 to 150 words, and I'll give those prompts for you. So we'll learn more about that, but this is where you can kind of put your name or your face to the name that we're seeing on the application, kind of get to put your story out there and get to, let us get to know you a little bit better. The third part is employment and extracurriculars. Those are 2 separate sections. You'll have 5 slots for each of those, of kind of to give us some background of your experiences. Again, we'll go into more detail about that. And then I kind of touch on restricted codes, but we'll definitely dive deeper into that. And these are ways where you can tell us that there's a specific scholarship on campus that you may be eligible for, and our office should take a look at you. It's things that we can't necessarily tell just by pulling up your account. So they're a little bit more unique. And we'll go into that in a second. So this is kind of, if you want to take a screenshot of this, I feel like this is a very good slide. This has like pretty much all the information condensed into one. So application opens up on October 1st. The deadline is January 11th, though that does change every year. So keep an eye out. And you will hear from us if you were awarded a scholarship over the summer, typically towards the end of the summer. The requirements, we haven't touched on this yet, and that's important. So a 3.25 cumulative GPA is required. This is especially important if it's your first quarter on campus, because you don't have a UC GPA yet, but you will by the end of the fall quarter. And by the time the application closes, we will have all the grades confirmed and we'll know what your GPA is. That does cause worry for some students where they're like, I don't know if I'm going to meet the 3.25. Like, I'm just kind of figuring it out of life on campus. I've only been here for a month. Complete the application and move forward as if you will hit that 3.25 mark. There's no harm in applying and then later on not meeting the GPA. There's nothing bad that's going to happen. So if I were a student filling out this application, I would just assume I'm going to hit that 3.25. I'm going to be considered for scholarships and just go forth with that. If you end up not hitting it, that's totally fine. You will be able to apply, of course, for next year. And by then you'll have much more quarters to make up your cumulative GPA. It's a lot of pressure for your first year because it's just the fall quarter. And then for continuing students, it's all your quarters combined. So hopefully you can hit that 3.25. You need to have a 3.25 in order to have your application read in the fall quarter or winter quarter technically. And then you also need to have a 3.25 over the summer for us to award you. So trying to maintain that 3.25 is really important. And then if we have any students who are maybe considering helping or graduating early, you do need to attend at least 2 quarters of the 24-25 academic year. So if you're graduating at the end of fall 24, you probably wouldn't, we can talk, but just know that you aren't the, your chances of getting a scholarship wouldn't be great because you're graduating. A lot of donors want to see at least their recipients attending 2 quarters, but there's always caveats, so we can go over if you have questions about that. And then the application requirements, we need those essays, we need a letter of recommendation, and you need to provide some background of your extracurriculars. So letter of recommendation. I like to cover this early because this is a large area of concern for a lot of students we talk to, especially new students when you're newly on campus and you kind of feel pressure that maybe you need to get a letter of recommendation from a professor at Davis. That is not the case. So I want to make sure, rest at ease, do not feel pressure that you are newly on campus, maybe you don't have a strong connection with someone or professor. You do not need to reach out to them. You can go back to a high school teacher or someone in your community, and I'd actually prefer that you do that. We value the content of the letter over the title of the person writing you the letter. So always think, who knows you the best? Who has the time that can actually sit down and write you a strong letter? You don't want to choose someone who's super duper busy and they may write you a letter that's only, a paragraph or a couple sentences. We want a strong letter, someone who has known you for a while, who can speak to you on maybe many different levels. Academic and a social setting would be great. So these are all examples, and they're just examples. So you could have someone that's not listening, that's totally fine. But this kind of gets some juices flowing of maybe people who you'd want to write a letter for you. So start thinking about that. This is probably the first step I would take of the entire process, because you can request your letter of recommendation and then work on your application simultaneously. So I'd give them the most time possible to write you the letter. So trying to think of this person early, reaching out to them via email. Hey, do you think you'll have the time to write me a letter? Would you be open to that? Putting that request into the system, and then work on your application as time allows. But giving them the most time available, especially before we start heading into the holidays and people get a little bit busier, is my biggest tip. So start thinking of your people, start reaching out and see if they have availability, and then put that request in the application as soon as possible. And this is how you will do that in the system. So this is a little sneak peek into our application. We'll have some screenshots throughout the presentation, but this is where you'll see the letter of recommendation. You'll say add recommender. You'll put their full name in their email address. Make sure it's the correct email address. There's no spelling errors, because of course then it won't get to them, and that's quite common. So make sure all the information is correct, and then you can also check in on this. So you can see that top person, I actually withdrew them because maybe they reached out to me and they said with a family emergency, they're not going to be able to write me a letter anymore. So I can withdraw that and then add someone new, or you can send them a reminder from the system. So if you've kind of been pestering them on your own email account and you kind of want to give them a break, have the system do it for you. So this is where you can check in, and you can also see when it was submitted as well. So to make sure that it is the student's responsibility that you get a letter, even though, you put those requests out and you just kind of leave it alone. Well, if you don't get a letter, you won't be receiving a scholarship. So you need to make sure you're checking in with them. And this is kind of where you can see it within the system. And these are some good tips on requesting a letter of recommendation. So if this is new for you and you're kind of intimidated, this is where I would start. I'd probably take a screenshot of this because it's something you can reference back, not only for this application, but for graduate applications or just letters of recommendation you might need in your professional sphere. So I already kind of covered reaching out to them earlier. 3 to 4 weeks is like the least amount of time I would give them. So if you kind of put off this application for a little bit and it comes to December, that is kind of like the last time I'd ask someone for a letter. If you give them less than 3 to 4 weeks, they're probably going to be too busy to do it unless they really, really like you and they'll take the time to do it. But sooner the better, give them the max time that they can. Make sure that the letters of recommend the recommenders know you well. And step 3 is really important, reaching back out to them. If you haven't spoken with them, like if it was a high school teacher and you've gone all over summer and into fall without speaking to them, maybe just check in with them, let them know anything that you've done over the summer, or hey, now that I'm on campus, I had this major and I'm already telling I don't like it. So giving them updates on kind of where you're headed. And then always thank them, of course. This is a big deal that they're taking time out of their day to write you a letter, and this is something that you will probably need in the future. So making sure you keep those lines of communication open, they'll be more likely that they'll write you a letter in the future. That's it for letters of recommendation. Moving on to the next section of personal essays. These are the prompts for the personal essays. So again, take a photo maybe. These are something that you can kind of start brainstorming on. The personal background is our first essay. It's 600 words. So this is our largest essay. and then they get smaller. The personal interest, which is our final essay, is only 150 words. So it's quite small. There's not a huge amount of space that you're having to fill up, but you need to use the space really wisely because it's the only time on the application you're really able to show us who you are and what's special about you. So the personal background, this is kind of giving us like some past information, like where did you come from? What has brought you to who you are right now in front of us applying for a scholarship? Academic and career goals. This is the whole point of a scholarship, right? Is we are trying to push you down whatever path you are going down. We want to help you accomplish your goals by relieving financial stress and pressure. So this is letting us know I have a very clear path of whatever that might be. You are allowed to change. So don't think that just because you wrote, that you wanted to be a doctor in the 2023 scholarship application that you're like married to that. No, we're not going to hold you to it, but we do want to see that you are going down a path that's clear and you have the steps that you are going to be taking to achieve your goal. So map that out beforehand and then make sure it's clear that we see what steps you're going to be taking and how we can help you go down that path. And then the final one is personal interest. So this is kind of like the catch-all. This is just you talking about you. It doesn't have to be specific to campus. It doesn't have to be specific to your major. It's just kind of fun stuff. Like, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? Like, what is unique and fun about you? So it's kind of a fun essay to end with. What else do I have to say about this? What I would do if I was writing these essays is I would kind of like bullet point out what is unique about me, what's special about me, and make sure those bullet points are all hit within these 3 essays. We want to use this space wisely. We want to get these faculty members who are reviewing your applications to get to know you and kind of be on your side. Like, oh, I want this person to get a high score. I want them to get a scholarship. So list out the things that are important to you and unique about you, and then make sure they're kind of blended into these essays. You're also making sure you're not repeating yourself in all 3 essays. You're bringing new points in. It can get redundant if you're just kind of going over the same thing. So make a list of all the things that you may want to bring into them, and then make sure it's all new and fresh within each essay. Moving on to the third part of our application, the employment and extracurriculars. It's pretty basic and self-explanatory, so we won't spend too much time on here. But you will have 5 employment history opportunities to list in 5 extracurricular. Employment is also paid and unpaid. So if you've ever had like volunteer experience, that's where that would live. This is not a required section of the application. We understand that maybe you're brand new, you're just coming out of high school, maybe you don't have a ton of employment history. You don't need to put anything if you don't have anything, but you have 5 spots if you do. Extracurriculars are required. So these can be participation in organizations, if you got any awards or honors. And it's important to know that for both of these, you can go as far back as you need to. So even though it might, you're a junior and it happened in your high school, you would still want to list it. So these are 5 spots for each of these that are valuable space. So go as far back as you need to. If you can get 5, don't feel bad that, oh, it was a couple of years ago. We still want to know about it. So this is the this section of the application, very basic. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But if you have questions, let me know. Now we are getting to the restricted codes, which is my absolute favorite part of the entire application. This is basically you helping us and us helping you. So like I said, these are all the criteria's kind of examples of donors when they're giving money to campus. They might say, okay, I want to give a student who's obviously academic achieving, but they also have this career interest. They also have this grade level. They also have this service experience. So they kind of call the shots, and then it's our job to make sure we're finding students on campus who meet those criteria. So these are examples of anything they could choose. And for all 500 plus of our scholarship funds, the donors have selected widely different things. And then it's our fun job over the summer to kind of search through the haystack to find those needles. But specifically for you all, we have gone through and chosen restricted codes that are specific to the college that we think are good things to shout out. So again, maybe take a photo because maybe these are things you're going to want to reference onto your application, specifically the 2 in blue. So 93, career interest in production agricultural. This is highly funded. So there's a lot of money with this restricted code or this bundle, because likely with production agriculture, there's many different scholarships housed within this restricted code. But this has a lot of money. So if you are in production ag, make sure you're shouting out in your application because there's a lot of money with that. And then the other one I was told to shout out is interest in soil science. Apparently, this is no longer a major in the college, but there is an award specifically for that interest. So we don't really have a great way of finding students who have an interest in soil science because there's no longer a major. So if that is you, make sure you're putting on your application so that we are able to find you, because apparently it takes us a long time to try and find students. And I mean, sometimes these awards go unfunded. If we can't find that needle in the haystack, and it's really, really dialed in and specific, if there might not be a student on campus that even meets that. So this is where you can kind of raise your hand and say, hey, scholarships office, look at me. You have 7 opportunities to list 7 restricted codes on your application. So what I would do if I was filling out this application, when you get to this page, you will click the click here. It is going to bring up a PDF of hundreds of restricted codes. I'm just going to sit down and look through all of them, maybe highlight the ones I think I am might be eligible for that are, impactful to me. Take a look at them and then count how many you have. So if you have 7, great, you're done. You're going to list those 7. If you have 12, you're going to need to dial it back a little bit and choose only 7 of those. So which ones are you not going to choose? You wouldn't want to choose things that are super obvious that our office can know without you actually telling us. So let's just say it's just your major, majoring in blah, blah, blah. Well, we know your major because we can see it on the application, right? So that would be a good one to not include on this list of restricted codes on your application because it's a little bit redundant. So choose what is most unique about you when you're looking at all the ones you're eligible for, and then choose those 7. If you have 7, great. If you have 6, that's great too. You don't need to choose ones that you don't apply to, but take a look. There's hundreds, so you might be surprised at how many you actually are eligible for. And then on the application, you will be asked to provide details of why you meet that restricted code. It's pretty simple. We're just looking for a sentence or two, just saying oh, I have a career interest in production agriculture and I'm planning on doing this. It's very simple. We're not asking you to write a full essay, just a sentence or two to give us a little bit more information about why you're choosing that restricted code on the application. That is the parts of the application. Now, when you're submitting, these are faculty members. I don't think I've gone too far into that, but the committee who actually reviews all these applications are faculty members. So just like you're not in your classes, submitting essays or any of your work without looking at spell check, looking at grammar, making sure it's, the best work that you're submitting. You don't want to do that with these applications either. So take a final look, make sure it's a clean, tidied up essay application. Getting an extra set of eyes. So if you have a buddy that's also doing the application, maybe swapping applications, taking a look at them, you would be surprised at when you have another person who knows you really well looking at your essays and they're like, oh, well, I thought you would have talked about this because I think that's so cool about you. Or, oh, I think, you mentioned it in this part of your sentence, but I would really talk about that more because I think that's amazing. It's hard to talk about yourself, but when you have someone else that knows and loves you really well, they might be able to help you if you're struggling on that part. So trying to get extra pair of eyes, not only for grammar and stuff, but also maybe for content. And then if you are struggling, especially with the essays, Student Academic Success Center has been able to help us in the past. They do get really busy around finals though. So if you can get to them early, if you're having questions, reach out to them and they usually are able to help. Okay, so you have applied. Yay, you're done. Now it gets to our work. So in the winter quarter, our faculty committee will be reviewing all these applications and scoring them. So 2 faculty members will read each of your applications. Then they will create a score. That score plus your GPA goes into a scholarship score. And that's the score that we actually use to award you. So your GPA is a factor. Of course, the higher the GPA, the better. But even if you are just a 3.25, don't get too hard on yourself because if you put a ton of effort into the scholarship application, it's really strong and those faculty members really like what you're saying, they could score you really high and then that can balance out your GPA. So, or on the other hand, if you have a really great GPA, but you kind of slacked on the application, just submitting it a week beforehand, didn't put in too much effort, it could negatively impact your scholarship score. So we're looking for that perfect marriage of a great GPA and a great application, making sure you got that letter of rec. Because again, if you don't get a letter of rec, it's kind of your application is going to get put to the side. So that is a requirement. Make sure we get that in. And then once the faculty committee is done with their work towards the end of the winter quarter, in the spring and in the summer, we are working on awarding. So we're looking at all 500 scholarship funds, making sure we have all of our money ready to get to you. And then we try to award as quickly as possible. It ends up always without fail, because life is busy, happening towards the end of the summer. And so keep an eye out at that time. You can always check in if you are anxious, like, hey, have you awarded any scholarships yet? We can give you updates throughout the summer. And you get notified via email. And of course, you see the award posted on your My Awards. Okay, I would love to answer any questions that you guys have. I do before want to give a shout out to the Sit Down with Scholarship sessions. So every other week-ish, our office is going to be holding Sit Down with Scholarship sessions. So they're an hour, maybe a little bit less than that, sessions where it's on Zoom, all virtual. You can come to us. We kind of give a quick overview of the application. We have rotating staff hosting these. So each of us kind of give like our best practices, our best tips on applying. And then we do group question and answer. So people in the chat asking questions, us answering them. And then we also do one-on-one advising. So if you're really struggling with a specific thing about the application, or you're not sure how you want to phrase this within your essays, it could be whatever kind of questions you have, we will then actually do individual one-on-one advising as well via Zoom. So definitely great opportunities, and they're throughout the fall quarter. Our last one I think is like the week before the applications due, so it's January 4th. So we are here to help. So take that QR code or just go to our website and register for as many of those as you'd like. And we also are, I believe, we're handing out some swag bundles or some UC Davis merch. So if you're looking for some fun items, we also will be doing a giveaway of those at the end of each session. So hope that you can join us. I'm going to stop sharing, and I would love to answer any questions.
I was going to drop into the chat the link for the academic assistance and tutoring centers for the writing support.
Thank you.
And they do specifically advertise assistance for scholarship applications.
That is great to know. I didn't know that. Awesome.
A student has a question in class.
Yeah.
I just have a question. So I'm a first year, right? This is my first quarter, only been here for a little bit of time. So for extracurricular activities, since I'm trying to see what clubs and everything I want to be in, you would highly recommend me putting in the ones I was super active in during high school?
Totally. Yeah. So this is a common concern we get from a bunch of students of like, should I enter in stuff that's from high school? Absolutely. So we want that application to get filled up. So if you don't have a ton from Davis, that's totally fine. Go back as far as you need to. And high school stuff is still really valuable and important. So please put that on there.
Okay. And then one more question. So for letters of recommendation, there's like 2 people I have in mind, but I don't know which one to choose because for letters of recommendation, do the people who like look at the letters, do they really look at the title of the person, like what their job was and everything?
I wish I had a good answer for this. It's so specific, right? Like we have a faculty of 20 plus people, and those are just individuals, and they all feel different things, where some do care about titles, just like in the world. Some people care about titles, some people don't. So I can't say for sure because I don't know who's going to be reading your application. I'm the one providing training for them, and I tell them we are looking for content. They can come from anywhere, but some people still get stuck on those titles. So if I were you and I have 2 that I'm not sure about, I would first think, maybe who have I known longer? Have I known people in multiple capacities? So like if I've only known them in the lab and they've never taught me, or they don't really know me as a person, maybe that's not great because they only know me in one facet. But if they know me in multiple areas and they can speak on me in multiple areas, maybe that's the person I would choose. Another route to go is to email both of them and say, hi, I'm looking for a letter of rec, because you'll request it from both of them because you have 2 slots, and then see who's maybe more responsive, who's more excited about it, who has more time on their hands. Someone's like, oh yeah, I think I can make it work. And another person's like, oh yeah, I'm so enthusiastic about it. That would be my primary person and not the other one. So maybe feel them out that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I did get direct message chat, so I just want to answer it really quick. It was a question about the Cal Aggie Alumni Scholarship. So if you are a new student to this year, you may have heard or applied for that. It was something that was due in May and June. It has been awarded already. So unfortunately, if you didn't hear from us, that means you weren't selected. That is only something given to incoming students. So it's not something you need to worry about applying for next year, but that's only one scholarship. There's 500 others plus that we will be awarding through this application. So definitely apply. Any other questions?
So Bree, I wanted to, I saw somebody just unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, I had one question. You mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that for like during the scholarship application process, it occurs between October and January. Since I'm a freshman, do I apply next October or do I start applying now
Right now.
or next
So
year?
it's a
Okay.
little strange, right? Because you're just getting started in this academic year and we're already talking about next academic year. So everyone on campus enrolled in the fall quarter right now should be applying for scholarships right now. Ends in January, and that is for the 24-25 academic year. So next year. So this is kind of the cycle that you'll get used to. In the fall quarter, you're already applying for scholarships for next year.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Well, that was a good segue to the comment I was going to make. I like that you were very specific about, even if you don't have a 3.25 now, I would suggest, meeting with an advisor, talking about an academic advisor, talking about how to set goals for that 3.25 for this quarter. And Bree, can you revisit again, like they have to have a 3.25 UC grade point average by the end of fall and maintain it?
Yeah, so have your application read, you need a 3.25 UC cumulative GPA by the end of fall. So we're looking at your grades and your GPA once grades are official on early January. So you need to hit that 3.25 to get your application read and scored. Winter, kind of a pass because your winter grades we're not really looking at your GPA at that time. So if you have like a rough quarter and it brings your GPA down a little bit, not really too much of a concern. Hopefully in the spring though, it'll be brought back up because that is when we are looking at your GPA. So at the end of spring quarter, for sure to get awarded a scholarship, it needs to hit a 3.25. So it'd be great if we could just maintain it. But if you do struggle in the winter, there's a little bit of a rebound time.
Okay, I learned something new. So by end of fall, 3.25, and then it gets checked again at the end of spring, 3.25 UC GPA.
Yep, UC cumulative. So all your quarters combined. So it's a lot less pressure once you're not a freshman student and you're just having that one quarter to go off of. I feel for you guys because that's rough. You're just adjusting to campus and now we're expecting you to hit 3.25. But for the rest of the time you're here, it gets a little bit easier because if you have a rough quarter, you have other quarters to kind of balance it out. Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely I want to hit home because this is a question we get where students are scared when the fall quarter. They're like, I'm a little overwhelmed. I don't think I'm going to hit the 3.25. Just pretend like you're going to. Be positive. And honestly, there are cases where even if you're like a little bit under, there's some scholarships that are a little bit less strict on their criteria and we can still award you. So it's a win-win. Just go ahead and apply as if you'll hit that 3.25. And like Lily said, please reach out for help if you are struggling with that. There's so many resources on campus. Okay, I think that's it then.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh yeah, go.
Okay, so I always get this question a lot from our larger majors like human development, managerial economics, animal science, and all of our animal majors. So when you feel like you're one of many, how can they set themselves apart from, all of the pre-meds, all of the pre-vets, all of the business students? Do you have any suggestions on how to individualize that experience?
Yeah, so number one, I would say restricted codes. Again, they're my favorite part. So looking through, there are some very unique ones. So I'm not joking when this is really going to be where you can kind of stand out a little bit because some of the donors, I'm like, where did you even think to like have this as a criteria for your scholarship? So take a look at those. Try to find the unique ones because some of those are really hard to find. Our staff spends like weeks and months trying to find like that special student who meets it. So definitely don't go overlook the restricted codes, even though it's at the end of the application, you're probably like tired and just want to get it submitted. Please take the extra second to take a look at those. And then I would say your essays. So putting like a very specific like voice to your application helps our faculty members really like feel for you. Like, oh, I want to award this student. I want to give this student a really good score. So taking the time for us to really get to know you. And these faculty really, this is like such a special time for them to get to know students, because they don't really get to know students like such on a deep level. So we hear all the time how like they love these applications. So please, like, let us get to know you. They feel very rewarded by that. And specifically, I would say on SA2, when you're talking about your academic and career goals, I already mentioned it, but the whole point of scholarships is to help you go down and reach your goals by relieving that financial stress. So if you are clear on your goals, and like I said, you're not married to them, they can change. But if you kind of are on a path and you are taking steps to reach those, that really resonates with them, because that's the whole point of what we're doing is we want to reward students for your hard work and help you accomplish whatever goals you've set for yourself. So making sure you give us clear path for you, even though it might change later, that is, I think, something that really resonates with staff as well.
I put in the chat the link to their website. The nice big banner on there takes you right to the continuing student scholarship information. I want to highlight the sit down with scholarships opportunities, because I imagine it's a forum like this where students are talking amongst themselves. You sometimes learn from other people attending that event as well, that online event as well. So, and meeting with other staff in their office. So, and tell your friends to apply. So I asked Bree to specifically talk to us about College of Ag, but if you have a friend, there's need-based and non-need-based scholarships, as you could tell. So encourage your friends that are doing well in their own colleges, even if they're a smaller sliver of the pie. Encourage them to apply also, and not let this money go by.
Absolutely. I'm also going to put our email in the chat. So if you have questions or follow-up that you just like didn't want to ask in this venue, please just email us. We'll get back to you within like 24 to 48 hours.